Rangers Ed podcast is back on with me tonight, and what a night to do it. First of all, we'll get to the Tarasenko trade in a second because that's just news in and of itself. But what about the fact that this team's come out of the break and 2 straight wins? I know you were there last night at the Garden, so what's the energy coming back from break that you felt last night?
I mean, we were kind of half expecting a slow start. I mean, Calgary across the league was spoken about being one of the most exciting games of the year, not just for the Rangers, not just for the Flames, but just in general. So that game, yeah, I mean, it had everything a hockey fan wanted, right? A ton of goals, a ton of fights, a ton of hits. And yeah, I mean, it was just an exciting game and an overtime win, right? Didn't have to go to a shootout or anything like that. It was an exciting overtime win for the Rangers. So yeah, can't complain about that. And yeah, the Garden last night, Wednesday night, was electric. I mean, we had a blast. Coach Ed had a blast. It's always fun at the Garden. I mean, sometimes it could be a little quiet at times, but when the team scores and when the team's doing well, there's no better place to be.
Well, you mentioned Uncle Coach Ed and Cousin Ed. You're not the only Ed on that podcast. So for those who may have had a little trouble listening to you last time, give us a breakdown of the Rangers Ed podcast, because it's not just this Ed Armellino, it's a few Eds on that show.
Well, it's 3 Ed Armellino. So yeah, we got little Ed, which is myself. I'm the youngest of the 3 Eds. And then we got my cousin, who's also named as Ed. So he goes by Cousin Ed on the show. And then Coach Ed is my dad, and obviously Cousin Ed's uncle. So he's been a coach for about 40 years. So we thought Big Ed wasn't as catchy for a podcast, so we went with Coach Ed. My sister always called him Coach Ed, and my sister's friends all through high school and college. So that name kind of stuck with him. And yeah, we do a little coach's corner on the podcast. We try to just break it down X's and O's, give the casual fan something to listen to that they might not understand about the game. And then, yeah, we break down each of the Ranger games. We do stars of the week, offensive star, defensive star, highlight of the week, key contributor, and then everyone's favorite award, Coach Ed's Doghouse Award, to the player that we all think isn't doing so hot that week. Or
well, let's get to that because obviously Lafreniere was actually in not only Coach Ed's doghouse, but Coach Gallant's doghouse for a while. So, getting that overtime goal on Monday must have been a confidence booster for him. And do you foresee a strong second half for this guy who last year kind of helped carry the team, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he got credited for one of those goals against Vancouver as well. He obviously has had a disappointing season thus far. But putting that kid's line back together, I think really gives him more confidence just in itself. Cousin Ed talked about this on a recent episode, that they're all kind of on an even playing field where one's not necessarily forcing a pass to the other. Whereas if you put a younger player on a line with Zibanejad or Panarin, they kind of feel obligated to get those veteran players the puck, so they might be passing the puck a little too quickly instead of having that confidence to skate the puck. So now when you see them playing all together, they're moving the puck well, they're holding on to it for that split second longer to make the nice play. And then it really showed in that overtime goal where he had the confidence, even though he saw Zibanejad across the ice, he had the confidence to hold on to it, go the length of the ice, and still gives Zibanejad that great pass, which I thought was going to go in, but Markstrom obviously made an unbelievable save, which Laffy ended up putting the rebound in. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I think it's really just playing with someone, playing with your peers, and just building that confidence together. I think it's really working wonders, as everyone can see.
So right now, the Rangers look like they're in about 6th place in the conference. That seems like an immobile situation right now because the Devils are good. The Islanders are, they're creeping up there, but mainly, I feel like they're stuck at 6th. Or do you see any advancement upward if they have a solid second half here?
I think they could definitely move a spot or two. I mean, I hate to wish injury upon anyone, but we also got the news today that Jack Hughes is down for at least a week. I hate to say it or hate to put it out there. I have a feeling it's that shoulder that bugs him ever since he came into the league. I've said it on the podcast a bunch of times that it's going to be tough for him to get through the playoffs with a bum shoulder or with a frame that he has, So, I mean, best of luck to him. But my point being is I don't think the Devils are going to be able to work their magic much without their leader there, Jack Hughes.
Well, as you know, I went to the game on Monday, and I'm thoroughly convinced I actually jinxed this guy because
maybe you should go to more of them, Alex.
I walk into the arena, and the first thing that happens is Jack Hughes scores that goal to put him up 1-0. Of course, the Canucks actually came back down 4-1, pushing overtime. Hughes gets the assist on the final goal in overtime. But look, I don't know. It was weird that 3 days later, after I've been there, the guy's on the injured list. I hope I didn't do anything, but
hey, Alex, I'll take it. I'll take it.
And no, the inside joke is that I'm usually a jinx to teams, so this is why it just makes sense. But
well, keep the Rangers gear off then. Keep putting the Islanders stuff on. I see you in Islanders gear sometimes, so keep that up. Do whatever you want to do with that.
As a friend says, if there was a dictionary place for fair weather fan, I'd be right there, I guess. But anyway, let me ask you this though, in all seriousness. So the Jack Hughes' injury happens, but do you think the Tarasenko trade happened today because the Islanders went out and got Bo Horvat? Is there some chess match going on now? Like they get Horvat, so now the Rangers had to make a move before the deadline?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think the Rangers had their sights on Horvat. I don't think that's really something they needed. I think the strong right wing, whether it was going to be Patrick Kane or Tarasenko, I was really pulling for Patrick Kane. Maybe his recent injury had a lot to do with it, or maybe he just simply wants to stay in Chicago. Because I think if Drury had the choice, he probably would have went with Patrick Kane. I mean, he's a Team USA player himself. I'm sure he prefers the American-born players. Hey, but I could just be making that up, So they got an elite goal scorer. It's definitely something the Rangers need. They don't have a Chris Kreider putting up 50 like he did last year, So it's really tough. Let's
talk about it. I'm glad you mentioned him because I've not been seeing his name in any of the assists, any of the goal scoring. It's really been either Laffy, it's been Zibanejad here and there. It's been Adam Fox, obviously, still having a huge season, really earning up the contract extension he got for 7 years. But Kreider was supposed to be the rock of this team. He just doesn't seem to be that. He's not being mentioned a lot. Am I wrong in that? Or
you're not necessarily wrong. Like I said, he's not having that 50-goal season. I mean, if there's a Ranger fan out there that thought he was going to have another 50-goal season, point me in that direction because I'll tell them that they're crazy. So that was obviously a magical year. But he is kind of getting back to that inconsistent player, which isn't great. But it's not as bad as it used to be. So I think he has been playing well. He's developing more of a leader into that department. So that to me is an intangible that people don't necessarily look at or a casual hockey fan looks at. But I always love Kreider. I mean, he's always a presence in the game. And I think right now, just his ability to get pulled off that first line with his best friends, Zibanejad, and have to still excel and find that chemistry with Trocheck, which seems to be working very well. I think that says a lot about a hockey player as well. And that's just another intangible where it just really brings the locker room together where no one's competing necessarily for a spot. Sure. Everyone's just on the same page and just doing whatever it takes to win. And Kreider knows he's not going to get the 50 goals. He might not get as many looks on that second or third line as he did with Zibanejad, but he's just going to do whatever it takes to win and get those W's for the Rangers. That's what I love about him.
Let me talk to you about this guy because for the second time at least, he may have been doing it more, but Trouba's been causing hell on the ice, and he did that the other night. But don't the Rangers need that leadership from him? I mean, I feel like he's becoming a leader now on the team, no?
Yeah, absolutely. He's blossoming. I mean, I feel like he's been progressing since day one as that leader. I mean, we can go back to the helmet toss that everyone talks about. I mean, I think that really cemented him as the captain of the New York Rangers. Not saying that Messi would have done something like that, but you really look for that in your captain, like that kind of emotion. And I said it on a podcast before the All-Star break or one of my episodes before the All-Star break. I'm not sure the number, but Trouba's got to be throwing a hit like that. Maybe not to that extent where Kadri's helmet's going flying and something like that, but he's got to be throwing hits like that at least once a game, at least once a game. Get the stir going, get the boys going, get the other team a little nervous. Hey, I'm not cutting through the middle of the ice if Trouba's on the ice.
That's because of the
things
Reeves
like
trade.
that.
That's because of the Reeves trade, right? Because you don't have that big man Reeves now, so someone's got to deliver the hits.
100%. And I think Drury kind of had that confidence going into that Reeves trade where he felt like he just didn't really need him anymore. And I mean, it pains me to say it's our producer, Mikey Produci's favorite player. I mean, he was definitely up there on my list. It definitely was hurtful to see him go. I think he brought a lot to the team and a lot to the lineup. Definitely the locker room once again, those intangibles. But hey, they seem to be doing okay in that department. They have a lot of tough guys that could fill the role. They don't need one. They have a bunch across the lineup that can definitely do that themselves.
Let's talk. And this team is not necessarily known for hard hitting. And whenever they cause a fight, it's news in the hockey world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As a team, the Rangers, I mean, they do focus a lot on speed, but I think they play their best hockey when people are playing a little bit more aggressive, when the Goudreaus are out there forechecking hard. Chris Kreider, like I just said, throwing the forecheck behind the net. Laffy does a great job of that on that line. So I feel like every line needs somebody like that up front. And then, like I said, Trouba's got to be that guy in the back. Keandre throws the body around a little bit. So I think the Rangers are slowly starting to develop into that team going into the playoffs. And I think they're getting hot at the right time, and they're doing the right things at the right time that we didn't see in the beginning of the season. Don't forget, it's a long season too, because teams are smart. They don't want to burn themselves out in the beginning. So you might see teams like Boston tailing off towards the end. Hint, hint.
There are two guys I want to cover now. You just mentioned them. Voracek, firstly, has sort of becoming a household name for Ranger fans. What about his play that gets him sort of endeared now? Because he's been mentioned a lot, and he's been featured on some social media as the guy now. So talk about that play from Voracek.
You said Trocheck?
Yeah, Trocheck. There you go. Yes.
Yeah, Voracek's on Philly, right?
Trocheck, yes.
Yeah, I get those names confused myself. But Trocheck, like I just said, he found that chemistry with Kreider. A big topic on, I think, episode 91 of our podcast was about Trocheck kind of accepting that third center role as not necessarily offensive, but more defensive minded, shutting down that opposing team's top lines. And I think he does a great job at that. And then they capitalize on their offensive opportunities that they do get. By playing that defensive hockey, Kreider and Trocheck and whoever's on that right wing with them are going to get a lot of chances, a lot of looks. And it looks like they're going to have a great right winger now that Tarasenko joined the Rangers, is probably going to be on that top line with Panarin. So,
well, let me ask you about, and Keandre, he's been also featured a lot, and he's been playing a role, and he seems to be a fan favorite as well this season.
Keandre is the man. They got to lock that guy up soon for a bridge deal or a long-term contract at some cheap money, and just lock him up for as long as you can, because he is the future. Him and Fox are obviously the future of the Rangers. And then you got Brady Schneider, obviously, too. But Keandre this year, especially, coach had predicted 15 goals out of him. It didn't look so good in the beginning of the season, but now he's getting hot. So you never know, but it's going to be a tough hill to climb. But he's phenomenal out there. He plays great defense, his long reach. He's all over the ice. He could skate like a gazelle. He's unbelievable out there. So he's great. I got no bad things to say about Keandre.
I'm just thinking about the season, and obviously a lot, and especially we saw it Sunday, has been made about the Ovi and Gretzky connection. Gretzky scored his last set of goals with the Rangers, if you think about it. So there's a huge Ranger tie to this chase for Ovi, is there not? With Gretzky being on the Rangers, his last team?
Yeah, and it makes things interesting for sure. I think Gretzky could have had a few more years with the Rangers, but I think he just felt like it was time to hang him up. So he probably could have had a few more goals. I'll say when Ovechkin does it, another thing coach had predicted, he predicted 1,000 goals for Ovechkin before he hangs him up. So not only will he break the record, he's going to hit 1,000 in our opinion. When that day happens, it's not going to be just exciting for Ranger fans or comparable to Ranger fans. It's going to be something across the entire league, something phenomenal.
I know he's with the Capitals, and New Yorkers just by trade do not like the Capitals. We just don't. And
I went to college in Maryland too, so it was tough.
We don't necessarily like Tom Wilson either. The league could do without that guy. Yeah. But Ovi himself has stood out as sort of a leader of the league, and he's actually more mature than a lot of his teammates, actually. So I have respect for the guy. I don't know about you, but I definitely have respect for him.
Yeah, when I was younger, I mean, when he was more of like a younger guy in the league, and we'll call him like a punk, I guess, whatever, scoring goals, running around, running people, throwing his body around. It was kind of annoying. I mean, the Rangers had a lot of playoff series those years in a row against him, and they always seemed to lose in 6 games, 7 games, whatever it was. So there was always that hatred between Rangers and Capitals fans. Mark Stoll versus Ovechkin back in the day was always a nice battle to watch. Even Henrik and Ovechkin had a nice rivalry for a long time. So now that rivalry between the Rangers and Capitals have kind of fizzled out a little bit. So now it's kind of nice to sit back and just appreciate how great Ovechkin is and just watch him do his thing.
I think he calmed down after winning the cup. I got to be honest. He seems to be a changed man after winning that cup. I got to ask you a very controversial question because you were at the game last night and you've been there for a while. This facial recognition at the Garden, is it giving you problems or what? Do you like it? What?
I mean, we got face recognition right here, Alex. We deal with it all day long in our pockets, in our hands, all the time, or with our phones. All of my information's out there. Whatever you need, Alex, you got it. Take whatever you need from me, all right?
But Dolan wanted to take the liquor away. He hasn't taken alcohol away yet, though.
That's not going to happen. He said that. He said in his that was really funny, actually. He said in his interview, "It doesn't bother me. I've been sober for 20-something years." Yeah, it doesn't bother you. How much money are you selling every night, every Knicks game, every Ranger game, every concert? How much money is that in your pocket? Mm-hmm. Don't tell me it doesn't bother you. It's funny.
I've been asking, and I asked someone who's a Yankee fan, and he covers the Yankees, much like you cover the Rangers with this podcast. Do you walk a fine line trying to not criticize the team because you might get press credentials from this team, or is that a goal for you guys?
Of course it's a goal. I mean, it would be amazing for something like that to happen, but I mean, we're not gonna like whatever walk any lines. That's what we pride ourselves on, where, hey, I put Adam Fox in the doghouse one time just because he was having a rough couple of games, in my opinion. I mean, everyone hears it. Everyone gets put in the doghouse. Everyone has an off week, and everyone's entitled to have an off week. And sometimes we put someone in the doghouse because we know they're going to bounce back the next week, and then we get to build them back up on the next episode. So, hey, we're not afraid to bash anybody. We have a whole segment, Alex, called Broadcast Banter, where we just talk about Sam Rosen, Joe Micheletti, Valley, Lundqvist, and some funny things that they say and that they talk about. So if anyone from MSG is listening, then we're probably not going to get jobs with MSG.
Well, let me ask you about this then. Has Igor Shesterkin been in the doghouse? Because look, he had a rough first half. He's had a rough sort of start to this. Got back around.
Yeah.
But let's face it, he's not been the Igor that won the Vezina last year.
No. I mean, I think everyone kind of knew that going in also, kind of similar to the Kreider situation. I'd have to look back on Cousin Ed's spreadsheet to see if he's ever actually been in the doghouse. I'd say probably not. A big thing that we talked about, because obviously when you look at his stats and when the rest of the league look at his stats, they understand where they look and see, oh, he's not having a year like he had last year. But the Rangers as a team weren't having a year like they had last year. I mean, everyone said that they weren't great 5-on-5 last year, but they still won a ton of games last year. They still played a lot differently than they're playing this year, and they got off to a really slow start, and I think that had a lot to do with it. So I don't think any of us were really blaming Shesterkin's play. Sure, he was letting in some soft goals here and there, but every goalie does that. And then he didn't have Halak backing him up where he could count on or felt like he could take a break. And just having Halak at his back now, I think that gives him a lot of confidence as well, now that he's able to take a game off here and there and be confident that the team's not going to lose.
And we know Halak from his Islander days, he's a solid goalie. So
he was always a Ranger killer, that's for sure. Bruins and Islanders.
When we last had you on, we were talking about the fact that this team could not hold a lead with 1 minute left in regulation, but I've been noticing that they've been holding on the leads a little bit better here in January into February. So how important is that? It sounds like a super reporter question, but how important is that they're not blowing the lead now for the most part?
No, that's one of the most important questions you can ask in hockey. I mean, to be able to hold a lead, to be able to get the lead and then hold on to it is very impressive. It's not going to happen every game. It's not going to happen the entire season. So for the Rangers, like I said, to get hot at the right time and be able to hold those leads and learn how to play in that third period is very important. I mean, Calgary, these last two games have made me a little nervous in that department. Obviously, winning the game 6-5. And then last night made me a little nervous that Vancouver was kind of nipping at their heels. And I thought that they were going to tie it. And it didn't seem like the Rangers were ever able to, me and Coach Ed like to say, step on the throat and just end the game or just kill the guy. I mean, I hate to say that, but like, that's what we always say, just step on the throat, just end it. And they were never able to do that in this game. And it was starting to make me nervous that they had a 2-goal lead twice in that game and they kept letting the Canucks come back. So I just wanted I texted Cousin Ed. I was like, just step on the throat. And they finally were able to do it. So can't complain. A win's a win,
I
right,
love that.
Alex?
Exactly. I love that though. Step on the throat. Okay. So, and the other thing about this team that I'm involved with closely, by the way, I love the hat. You got to tell us about the merchandise. Do you guys have merch?
We are in the process of getting a little website shop going through Long Island Hockey Company. You could find them on Instagram or online. It's Long Island Hockey CO on Instagram,
The
and then it's
CCM for
Long
Long
Island
Island,
Hockey
then.
CO. I'm sorry.
The CCM for Long Island, then, huh?
Yeah, exactly right. So, yeah, they made these hats for us. It's 3D embroidered, new era mesh hats, so they're beautiful. The shirt that I'm wearing, I actually made myself last minute
I love that.
to wear out to the game one night. So yeah, we're definitely
I'm
trying
glad
to
I
get some
mentioned
merch
that.
going.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'll ask you about that in a second because I don't know. The Ranger Pod is obviously your baby, but you do have a full-time job as well, right? You work as well.
Yes, of course. I wish it
What do
was
you
my full-time job, but it's not yet.
what do you do? Take us behind the scenes for a minute.
Yeah, real quick behind the scenes, I work a lot around New York City, Brooklyn, Queens. I'm a materials engineer by degree, I guess, but I do testing and inspections on quality control around New York City on construction. So I have a testing lab in Hicksville where we test concrete, the strength of concrete that they're pouring all around the city and Long Island.
So wait
And
a
we
minute,
do visual.
the transforming of these stadiums to ice rinks must be really fascinating to you then, if you think
Oh,
about the
I absolutely love things like that. Seeing like the time lapse videos of what they do, it's fascinating to me for sure.
And I know you also do graphic design. You just mentioned the shirt, but I know you've done other stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do all the stuff for our Instagram, all the posts and everything. So it's kind of like I wouldn't say side hustle, but like a hobby or a side passion of mine. So, and then you can see some stuff behind me. There's a
Love
Truva
it.
sign made out of wood there. And that's the lid of my trading card box. So I do things like that. I do woodworking and little projects and stuff like that. So I'll tease something. Keep an eye out for Little Ed's Workshop on Shopify and Etsy and things like that. So I'm going to start trying to sell some of my items.
I'm going to definitely keep an eye out on that as well. This team, from what I followed over the years, they have that huge start in November and October and December. They have the dip in January. And I've always thought if a hockey team could actually come together in January, February, that leads you into March and April and May and maybe June. So the fact that the Rangers have the dip early may have been maybe a good thing, is it not?
Coach Ed swears by exactly what you just said, that I mean, teams are going to have ebbs and flows throughout the entire season. And it's never a good thing to have that downfall right where we're at right now, right before the end of the season with 30 something games left. I think they have 32 games left now. So to get into a little bit of a cold streak right now would be a very bad thing. So it's looking good that they're kind of ramping back up into that hot streak. And like I said, they picked a really good time to do it, and they picked a good time to get slow in the winter season or in the fall part of the season.
What line do you think Tarasenko fitting in on? Obviously, you mentioned Hedel, and I got the alerts at the game on Monday night. I'm like, oh my god, Hedel's got two. Let's get a hat trick for him, right? But obviously, him coming on is strong. He was as strong as last year, also. But what line do you see Tarasenko on, and what will fit him?
Tarasenko's is definitely going to be playing with Panarin, and right now Panarin's playing with Zibanejad, so I think they're going to be going with that top firepower first line of Panarin, Zibanejad, and Tarasenko on the right wing. And Alex, it's going to be dangerous, but it's going to be dangerous. I'm really
Can you
excited
imagine
to
those
see.
three up against Krejci and Pasternak is their first lineup in Boston? Look, I have my eyes on Boston because they are on this unbelievable run still, and they've got unbelievable talent. So you got to sort of see how can you match up with the number one in the conference, right?
Yeah. And then the most important thing is that second line, in my opinion, the second line of Hedel, Laffy, and Kakko coming in strong and backing up that first line, because if the Rangers are going to be putting up that much firepower up on the first line and not quote unquote balancing out the lineup, then they really have to rely on those second and third lines to do their job. And right now that they are, and that's going to be a huge part of the Rangers moving forward. And I'll quote Cuzette on this: if the Rangers win the cup, Laffy, Kakko, and Hedel are going to be a huge part of that.
And last year there was a lot of concern about Kakko because he wasn't performing up to the standards, and I think that carried into this year a little bit. So has he righted his ship?
Yeah. I'm sorry, who'd you say?
Has Kakko righted his ship from
Kakko,
where he sit?
He's not 100% on course, but he has been showing some very nice flashes. A lot of Hedo's goals are set up by Kako, and I think that whole line right now is kind of finding their identity and finding their way. And Kako has a lot of confidence with the puck. His stick handling has shown it. His vision of the ice, his passing, all of those things are just phenomenal. I compared him in a way to Patrick Kane, his stick handling, where he's able to just corral that puck and just have that confidence and box players out. And I think his play below the goal line can match anybody else in the league. I think he has like 2 or 3 assists in the last couple of games of that spot behind the net where he fed somebody in front, Hedel, Laffy, whoever it was. So he's playing phenomenal. And Laffy, the same thing. I mean, he's slowly starting to break out a little bit. I don't want to say break out. He's not there yet. But they're all getting there. I think Hedo's breaking out, and then Kako's going to be right behind him, and then hopefully Lappy's going to follow him soon as well.
Well, you guys have a lot
right at the right time of the playoffs.
I was going to say, you guys have a lot of great features on this podcast. So where can people listen? I mean, obviously you're on YouTube now, you're on Apple Podcasts, you're on Spotify at Rangers, and then on Instagram, Rangers_Ed, correct?
Rangers_Ed.pod is the official Instagram. We're also on TikTok. I believe it's the same thing. But if you just search Rangers Ed Podcast on anything, it should come up. Like you said, we're on YouTube. That's where we're trying to get most of our guys to go over to, because like I said, it's absolutely hilarious. And as you can see, I got a ton of memorabilia behind me for everyone to check out while we're recording. And we also do like little things, like with our memorabilia, we might bring on a card for a Star of the Week or something and show the fans. So
are you a big card collector still? Are you a big card collector to this day?
Yeah, all those right there are all my cards. I got all the young guns, Laffy, Kako, Upper Deck, Opeachy, you name it.
Do you have a jersey for every guy or what?
No, I'm not there. I can't afford. Oscar's got great prices, but no one can afford all those hockey jerseys except for Oscar.
I see that. Well, I tell you what, I got to check out Oscar's page as well. But I'll tell you,
I'll send it over to you.
It is a little different. Hockey jerseys are always a little bit pricier just because they're fun to wear, first of all, right? Are they not?
And they're just beautiful. They're beautiful. I mean,
I would say
not taking away from anything else, but it's just a different thing. It's definitely the most material, right?
Yeah.
So
I luckily have the alternative, and I love the Liberty. I have the other two as well, the home and the away. I gotta have them 3 at least.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I do have a bunch. I don't have every player on this team, but I do have a bunch. I mean, Henrik is my prized possession that Oscar made me recently. That's the home blue. And then I have on order a Trouba reverse retro for this year that he's supposed to be making me. So I do have to shout out my other sponsor though. Meg Suter down in Tennessee. She has a custom cookie shop. And she made this one, Coach Ed's Doghouse. So you could check her out on Instagram. It's Suter's Sweet Treats. And then on Etsy, you could place an order with her, Suter's Sweets and More. That's SUTERS. And you could use promo code EDPOD23.
There you go.
So yeah, I'll get a few more real quick. I got the Rangers jersey cookie. The Rangers logo cookie. You can see they're actual cookies. You can eat these. And then she also makes custom chocolate hockey figures. This is Mika Zibanejad. So
that is cool.
Shout out to Meg down in Springfield, Tennessee. She's our most recent sponsor. We love her cookies, and she's a phenomenal artist.
All right. Biggest question I have is, we're coming down the stretch here. Who is the biggest threat to the Rangers right now? And obviously, how can they, I wouldn't say step on the throat, but how can they neutralize the threats ahead of them? I mean, there's got to be a way, right?
I mean, I think obviously Boston's always going to be a threat. Tampa down the road is going to be a threat. Carolina is up there in the Metro. I mean, right now Carolina is the only team in the Metro I think that can really compete against the Rangers in a 7-game series. And I don't want to say it could go either way, but they could give them. I have a lot of confidence in the Rangers. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I have a lot of confidence, especially with this Tarasenko move. Getting another right-wing goal scorer like that is going to be phenomenal. And if him and Panarin can click, like I think that they will, they're going to be a dangerous team. And I don't really see a lot of teams in the East competing with them, except for, like I said, a team like Boston, Tampa. Those would be my two teams that I'm definitely still a little afraid of, and they're not going away
Not
this
the
year anytime
Penguins, huh?
soon.
They're not the Penguins.
No, the Penguins and the Capitals, I think their time is dwindling. I think the Rangers can definitely handle both of those teams right now. I think the Penguins are a little beat up at the moment. They're a little injured, so maybe we'll see when they come back from injuries. But I think by then there's going to be too much ground to make up, and I think they're going to be left behind.
Well, I've loved this. And one last thing, your cousin Ed was down in Florida for
Yep.
Sunrise for the
Yep.
All-Star game, and you covered that on Rangers Pod. Did you guys cover that on the show this morning? And also, what'd you think of it? I thought it was a very strange setup, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll get I want to hear your thoughts as well. But cousin Ed was down there. He lives in Miami. So that's why we're able to do our show on Zoom and everything. Who's our host, so he's the one on there. He lives down in Miami, so it wasn't too far away for him. He did confirm that it was a little bit more exciting in person than it was on TV. I think the biggest thing is that we have to remember that it's for kids, and everyone that's critiquing it is on the older side, right? So I think it's most important if the kids are having fun, if the players are having fun. The mascots had a ton of fun, as everyone could see. No,
Obi
I do think
Jr.,
that
Obi's kid, adorable.
right.
I mean, come
right.
on.
So the families that get to go are having fun. They're all on vacation and everything. The NHL did a good job by picking Fort Lauderdale or Miami, where the Panthers play. And yeah, I mean, they got to do something to make it a little bit more exciting for the viewership, without a doubt. But I think they're heading in the right path.
I was keeping an eye on the Ranger guys that were in there, and when Panarin kind of whiffed, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this was a terrible shot! Come on, Artemi, what are we doing here?" But
cousin Ed was like, "Yeah, watch Panarin win the accuracy shooting, and he can't hit the net in a game."
That was right, and he was right. I mean, that was a rough go of it there. But hey, there's a lot of hockey to go. I want to have you on in the next month because I feel like this is the stretch between mid-February to late March is the stretch. Yep. So we'll see how they do. And with Tarasenko and any other thoughts that we might be surprised with who they add down the road here.
Like I said, I think they're going to address the fourth line at this point. We talked about it in a recent episode, I believe episode 91, that that fourth line is kind of, I don't want to say non-existent, but it's kind of like a rotating wheel in a way. Like it's four guys that are constantly just in and out of that spot. I mean, VC's either on the fourth line or he's playing up on the first line with Panarin or he's on the third line with Trocheck. It's like they just have to cement that fourth line. Every Stanley Cup team always has that fourth line that fourth line played phenomenal. No one talks about the first line when the team wins the Stanley Cup. No one talks about the first line, but everyone talks about the fourth line. So I think that's what's on Drury's mind. He's got to cement that fourth line and because like I said, the top nine right now are set, in my opinion. So they need that fourth line to be clicking and the team to be working on all cylinders.
Well, Ed, I'd love to have you back. There's so much hockey I could talk with you still, but we gotta save it for another episode because we haven't even touched the McDavid, the Western Conference.
Well, we could do a little playoff preview. We could do a little around the league next time, and hopefully I would say the Western Conference as well.
The Western Conference is so lopsided. How do you have McDavid, who's one of the leading scorers of the conference, in 6th or 7th place? It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy.
Then the Avalanche, who actually won last year, are not even in the tuck right now because Vegas and Seattle. It's kind of amazing to me, the switch.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean,
real quick, I think the Western's just it's a different world though out there. It's a different conference. We're living over here in the East where hockey makes sense.
That's true. Well, I do think the way the layout is here, except for the Devils, that was a surprise this year. But other than that, Hurricanes are all going to be a factor every year now. So you got to deal with that, right?
Yep. We could talk about this all night, Alex. You know that. That. And I'd love to keep talking to you. The Hurricanes are always going to be a threat, and not always. The Pacioretty thing is a huge loss for them, but I think they're going to make a move soon too. And they're going to be right there with the Rangers, I think, in the conference final like last year, or the division final like last year.
Yeah, and we took them to 7-1, so we'll see what happens. Hey, little Ed Armellino, thanks again for joining me, and we'll do this again in March, huh?
You got it, Alex.
And if we get to a game this year, I am definitely down for that. We got about a month to go, so we got to make it happen.
We'll figure something out. I'll let you know which tickets we have, and you got to come with us.
Would love that. All right, Ed. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
That has been the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight on RangersEd.pod, the podcast.